Harmony Creek's sheriff. Darlene Whitlock pushed open the screen door of Mabel's diner, the scent of frying bacon and burnt coffee swirling around her like a comforting blanket. The bell above the door jingled, drawing the eyes of the dozen or so locals nursing their morning caffeine. A couple of heads nodded in her direction, a silent acknowledgement of her presence. Darlene, or Dar as most called her, was more than just the sheriff of Harmony Creek. She was woven into the very fabric of the town. "Mornin', Dar," Mabel called from behind the counter, her voice raspy from years of shouting orders over the sizzle of the grill. "Coffee's fresh," and Earl already polished off half a pecan pie. Darlene smiled, a rare, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "Earl's got a sweet tooth bigger than Texas itself. Tell him I said he's lucky I love him." She poured herself a cup, the dark liquid steaming in the cool air. As she turned, she noticed a low rumble of discontent emanating from a booth in the corner. Jedediah, the town's resident grumbler, was red-faced and waving his hands, while Martha, the postmistress, looked close to tears. Darlene sighed inwardly. Another day, another dispute. She walked over, her boots clicking softly on the worn linoleum. "Mornin', Jedediah, Martha. Everything all right here?" Her voice was calm, but carried an underlying authority that commanded attention. Jedediah puffed out his chest. "All right?" "No, Sheriff. Things ain't all right. Martha here's been holding back my mail. Says I gotta pay for a P.O. box now, even though I've been getting my mail delivered to my house for 50 years. Martha dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "It's the new regulations, Jedediah. I don't make the rules. The Postal Service says if you don't have a proper mailbox, you gotta get a P.O. box. Your mailbox is practically fouling off its post." Darlene listened patiently, her gaze moving between the two. She knew Jedediah was stubborn and Martha was by the book. This could easily escalate into a full-blown shouting match. All right, she said, holding up a hand. "Let's all take a breath. Jedediah, I understand your frustration. But Martha's right. She doesn't make the rules. Martha, is there any wiggle room here? Any temporary solution we can come up with while Jedediah gets his mailbox fixed?" Martha hesitated, then sighed. "Well, I suppose I could hold his mail at the counter for a couple of weeks. But he needs to promise he'll get that mailbox fixed pronto." Jedediah grumbled, but nodded. Fine. But don't you go losing any of my sweepstakes entries, Martha." Darlene smiled. "There you go. Problem solved. Now, how about I buy you both a coffee to celebrate?" The tension in the booth dissipated, replaced by a grudging truce. Darlene knew these small acts of mediation were just as important as chasing down criminals. Harmony Creek was a small town, and its peace depended on keeping the peace between its residents. Later that evening, the aroma of pot roast filled the Whitlocks' modest home. Darlene watched as Lily, her daughter, meticulously arranged her mashed potatoes into a perfect circle. Lily, all of 8 years old, was a miniature version of Darlene, with the same determined chin and bright, intelligent eyes. Earl, however, was a different breed altogether. With his easy smile and charming demeanor, he could talk his way out of anything. Tonight, though, he seemed subdued, picking at his food. "Everything all right, Earl?" Darlene asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "Just tired, Dar," he said, forcing a smile. "Long day at the lumberyard." Darlene knew Earl's charm often masked a deeper insecurity. He always felt the need to prove himself, to be the provider, the strong man. Sometimes that need led him down the wrong path. "How was school today, Lilybug?" Darlene asked, turning her attention to her daughter. Lily launched into a detailed account of her day, complete with dramatic reenactments of a particularly disastrous science experiment. Darlene listened, her heart swelling with love. These moments, simple and ordinary, were what she cherished most. After dinner, as Lily was getting ready for bed, Darlene found herself staring out the kitchen window, the Texas sunset painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and red. A memory surfaced, unbidden, of her father, the previous sheriff of Harmony Creek. She was a young girl, maybe 10, sitting on the porch swing with him, watching the same sunset. He was a stern man, but fair, with a deep sense of justice that ran through his veins like the creek that gave the town its name. "Justice ain't always easy, Dar," he'd said, his voice raspy from years of chewing tobacco. "Sometimes it means doing what's right, even when it hurts, even when it means going against the grain." He'd told her stories of tough decisions he'd had to make, of balancing the law with the needs of the community. He'd instilled in her a sense of duty, a belief that right and wrong were not always black and white, but shades of gray that required careful consideration. "A good sheriff," he'd said, "is a shepherd, not a wolf. She protects her flock, even from themselves." His words echoed in her mind now, a constant reminder of the responsibility she carried. Back inside, she found Earl sitting in his recliner, flipping through channels on the television. The air hung thick with unspoken tension. "Earl," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You seem distracted. Is everything really all right?" He looked up, his eyes avoiding hers. "Like I said, Dar, just tired. Long day." He forced another smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Darlene studied him, her instincts screaming that something was amiss. But she pushed the feeling down, attributing it to stress, to the weight of her job. She wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. "All right," she said, turning away. "Just let me know if you need anything." As she walked to the bedroom, a sliver of doubt lingered in her mind, a nagging feeling that something was about to disrupt the fragile harmony of her life, the peaceful existence she had worked so hard to build in Harmony Creek. The feeling was like a splinter under her skin, small now, but she knew it would fester if she didn't address it. She just didn't know how, or if she even wanted to. Whispers in the wind. The clinking of glasses and low murmur of conversation usually soothed Darlene after a long day. Tonight, the sounds of the rusty spur grated on her. She nursed a lukewarm Lone Star, the condensation beating on the glass and leaving rings on the scarred wooden counter. A knot tightened in her stomach, mirroring the frown etched on her face. It wasn't just the humidity hanging heavy in the air. It was the whispers. She'd heard snippets all evening, carried on the breeze like dandelion seeds, each one landing with the prick of a thorn. "Earl's been hitting the tables hard. Lost a bundle down in Shreveport. Says he'll win it all back." Darlene had dismissed the first few whispers. Gossip was as common as dust devils in Harmony Creek. But the whispers kept coming, louder, more persistent. Clyde, the Spurs owner, a man whose face had seen more years than his bar had been open, wiped down the counter in front of her. He usually greeted her with a joke and a refill, but tonight he kept his gaze averted, his movements stiff. "Evening, Dar," he mumbled, not meeting her eye. "Clyde," she replied, her voice deliberately neutral. "Anything I should know about?" He scrubbed harder at a non-existent stain. "Just the usual Friday night crowd, Dar. Folks unwinding." Darlene didn't press him. She knew when she was being stonewalled. She took another swig of her beer, the bitterness clinging to her tongue. Leaving a generous tip, she walked outside, the screen door slapping shut behind her. The night air felt thick and oppressive. As she climbed into her truck, her phone buzzed. An anonymous text message. "Heard tell of late-night activity at your ranch. Trucks going in and out. Something ain't right." Darlene stared at the message, her gut twisting. She immediately dismissed it as some prank or maybe a neighbor with a grudge. Earl had been working late, repairing fences, she reminded herself. It was probably just that. She drove home slowly, her headlights cutting through the darkness. The ranch was quiet, the only sounds the chirping of crickets and the distant howl of a coyote. The house was dark, save for a single lamp burning in the living room. She found Earl slumped in his favorite armchair, the television flickering with the static of a late-night infomercial. A half-empty bottle of whiskey sat on the table beside him. He looked up as she entered, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. "Hey, darling," he slurred, a weak smile stretching across his face. "Didn't hear you come in." "Long night," Darlene said, her voice tight. "You could say that," he chuckled humorlessly. "Fence needed more work than I thought." Darlene studied him, searching for any sign of deceit. His face was flushed, his words slightly slurred, but nothing concrete. Still, something felt off. The air around him crackled with a nervous energy she couldn't ignore. "Everything all right, Earl?" she asked, her voice softer now, laced with concern. He avoided her gaze, reaching for the whiskey bottle. "Sure, darling. Just tired. Real tired." He took a long swallow, the liquor burning its way down his throat. Darlene walked over and knelt in front of him, taking his hand in hers. His skin felt clammy, his grip weak. "Earl, look at me. Tell me what's going on." He finally met her eyes, and for a fleeting moment, she saw a flicker of something she hadn't seen in a long time: fear. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a practiced nonchalance. "Nothing's going on, Dar," he insisted, his voice rising slightly. "Why are you always so suspicious?" She pulled her hand away, a coldness settling in her chest. "I just care about you, Earl. I want to know you're okay." He stood up abruptly, swaying slightly. "I am okay. Just leave me alone, all right?" He turned and stumbled towards the bedroom, leaving Darlene standing alone in the living room, the unanswered questions hanging heavy in the air. She watched him go, a wave of exhaustion washing over her. She wanted to believe him, to trust that everything was fine. But the whispers, the anonymous text, Earl's evasiveness, they all pointed to something else, something darker. Darlene walked over to the window and looked out at the darkened ranch. The wind had picked up, rustling the leaves in the trees and carrying with it a low, mournful sound. It sounded like a warning. She knew, deep down, that she couldn't ignore it. She had a feeling that the peace she had always known in Harmony Creek, the peace she had worked so hard to maintain, was about to be shattered, and she was the only one who could stop it. Shadows of doubt. The light had gone out of Lily. Her laughter, once a vibrant melody across the homestead, was now a stark absence. Darlene registered the change sharply at supper. Lily merely toyed with her steak, swirling the gravy in aimless patterns. Gone was the customary chatter, replaced by a muted, almost wounded quiet. Her gaze remained glued to the patterned tablecloth, dodging connection. "Sweetheart, everything okay?" Darlene inquired, her tone soft as a summer breeze. A mumbled response, then a shake of her head. "Just tired," Lily finally rasped. Darlene refrained from pushing. She understood her daughter. Pressure only drove her further inward. Still, a knot of unease tightened in her stomach, a cold weight settling low. She watched Lily's slender form retreat down the hall, leaving behind a half-eaten plate and a growing sense of foreboding. The next morning brought a sharper edge to her anxiety. Checking the cookie jar in the pantry for cash, a lifelong habit, Darlene found it nearly bare. $100 at least should have been tucked away for emergencies or impulsive feed store buys. Instead, only a few crumpled bills remained. "Earl," she called, her voice sharper than intended. He claimed to be repairing a fence near the barn. He strolled in, face ruddy from the sun, a hesitant smile plastered on his features. "What's up?" "The money," she stated, gesturing toward the pantry. "The money in the jar. It's missing." His smile wavered. He scrubbed a hand through his thinning hair. "Oh, that. I borrowed it. Needed some cash for supplies." "Supplies?" Darlene's eyebrow arched. What kind of supplies cost that much? And why the secrecy? He stammered, avoiding her gaze. "Just farm things. Didn't want to burden you with the details." The excuse rang false. Darlene knew, with a certainty that settled in her bones, that it was a fabrication. Earl had little interest in ranch work, let alone procuring supplies. That was her domain, or Hemming's, their seasoned ranch hand. The chill intensified. A disquieting pattern developed over the week. Darlene noticed an increasing number of missed calls on the landline, each from an unknown number. Answering yielded only silence. Then, one afternoon, amidst sorting laundry, the phone rang again. This time, a faint, garbled voice flickered across the line before it went dead. It sounded like a woman, but the connection afforded no clarity. Lily's withdrawal deepened. She shunned her friends, preferring the confinement of her room. Her grades, once impeccable, faltered. Darlene attempted to reach her, coax her from her seclusion, but Lily remained closed off, her eyes reflecting a profound sadness Darlene couldn't decipher. One evening, Darlene discovered Lily on the porch swing, gazing into the encroaching darkness. The swing's rhythmic creak was the sole sound piercing the stillness. Darlene joined her, looping an arm around her shoulders. "Honey, you can talk to me," she murmured. "About anything. You know that, don't you?" Lily leaned in her mother's embrace, yet remained mute. After a pregnant pause, she whispered, I don't feel right, Mama." "Not feeling right how?" Darlene queried, her heart aching. "Are you ill? Should we call Dr. Evans?" Lily shook her head, tears brimming. "It's not like that." Darlene squeezed her tighter. "Then what is it, baby? Tell me. Please let me help." Lily pulled away, swiping at her tears. "I can't," she choked. "I just can't." She bolted inside, leaving Darlene alone on the porch, the swing's creak a somber accompaniment to her rising dread. The air hung heavy with unsaid words, secrets lurking in the shadows. Darlene lingered there, the anonymous text message resurfacing in her thoughts. Something's not right at the ranch. Look closer. She dismissed it as a prank, idle gossip. Now, doubt gnawed at her. The missing funds, the strange calls, Lily's distress, Earl's deception. They coalesced into something unsettling, something indefinable. The tranquility she had so painstakingly nurtured was fracturing, supplanted by a creeping fear. She felt, with a marrow-deep certainty, that the shadows were closing in, and that whatever was unfolding at the ranch was far more perilous than she could have fathomed. She had to uncover the truth, regardless of the pain it might inflict. She had to safeguard her family, even if it meant confronting the man she believed she knew, the man she had pledged her life to. A mother's intuition. Dust devils danced around Darlene's worn boots as she headed for Bessie's. The Texas sun a brutal weight on harmony. That cryptic text still pulsed in her pocket, a digital thorn pricking at her peace of mind. She reasoned with herself, attributing her worry to a mother's overactive imagination. Yet, Lily's quiet despondency and Earl's flimsy alibis, the dissonance clawed at her. Bessie's offered a cool, shadowy embrace, a sanctuary from the oppressive heat. The mingled scents of sizzling pork and day-old coffee hung in the air. Darlene eased into a booth, the vinyl clinging to her arms. Mabel, who'd watched Darlene grow up, ambled over, her face a testament to years spent listening and toiling. "Dar, sugar, what brings you in? Earl not feeding you proper today." Mabel's tone held a familiar jest, but Darlene caught a fleeting apprehension in her gaze, a wariness previously unseen. "Just need a coffee, Mabel, and maybe a sliver of that apple pie, if there's any left." Darlene mustered a smile, adding casually, "Earl's been burning the candle at both ends lately. Ranch matters, he says. Figured I'd see if anyone had spotted him." Mabel's pouring motion stuttered. She scrutinized Darlene, her expression opaque. "Earl? Oh, you know him, Dar. Always chasing rainbows. Haven't laid eyes on him myself these past days." She topped off Darlene's cup with undue force, dark brew spilling onto the table. Darlene tasted the coffee, the acrid flavor failing to quell her rising unease. "He mentioned needing supplies from the feed store last night. Said it was urgent." Mabel scrubbed at the counter with unnecessary zeal. "Well, now, that's a corker. Jed at the feed store said he shuttered up early. Claimed he was under the weather." Darlene's insides clenched. She thanked Mabel, paid her tab, the dread in her belly growing heavier with each step toward the First Harmony Bank. Mrs. Henderson, the teller, never missed an opportunity for a chat. "Afternoon, Dar," Mrs. Henderson chirped, her silver bouffant immaculate. "What can I do for you today?" "Just depositing this, Millie," Darlene said, offering the slip. "Say, Millie, haven't seen Earl around, have you? He usually handles the ranch accounts." Millie's smile flickered, a momentary eclipse. "Earl? He's in and out. Mostly withdrawals, it seems. More outflow than inflow, if you catch my drift." She emitted a nervous titter, pivoting rapidly. "Heard the rodeos stampeding into Harmony next month. You and Earl going to attend." Darlene emerged from the bank more perturbed than before. The pieces didn't mesh, and the emerging tableau was unsettling. She steered toward the rusty Spur Saloon, a haunt Earl frequented more than she approved. The parking lot was nearly deserted mid-afternoon, save for a battered pickup of unfamiliar make. As she idled, she noticed a woman exiting the establishment, her crimson lipstick a lurid slash on her ashen complexion. Darlene placed her. Jolene, a waitress at the Spur, notorious for her barbed wit and equally sharp fingernails. Darlene hesitated, then powered down her window. "Jolene, how are you holding up?" Jolene narrowed her eyes, recognition flaring. "Darlene, didn't anticipate encountering you here." Her tone was a peculiar blend of surprise and, could it be, compassion. "Just driving by," Darlene demurred, striving for nonchalance. "Heard Earl patronizes this place." Jolene gnawed her lip, her gaze skittering nervously. "Earl's a fixture," she confessed finally. "He spends considerable time here, especially after dark." "After dark?" Darlene repeated, her voice barely audible. Jolene sighed, leaning closer to the vehicle. "Look, Darlene, I'm not one to stir the pot, but there's talk about Earl's proclivity for gambling and other pursuits." She paused, her eyes locking with Darlene's, conveying genuine concern. "Suffice it to say, he's not always alone when he departs. And the debts he's accumulating, they're substantial." A wave of nausea crested over Darlene. The air grew thick, oppressive. She gripped the wheel, her knuckles gleaming white. What other pursuits?" she managed to choke out. Jolene faltered, then shook her head slowly. "I can't divulge specifics, Darlene, but tread cautiously. Something's amiss." She straightened, pivoting away, leaving Darlene alone with her deepening premonitions. Darlene sat motionless for an extended moment, the engine murmuring, the relentless Texas sun baking the car. Her equilibrium faltered. That anonymous message, Lily's profound sorrow, Earl's fabrications, the whispers, the gambling quagmire, the surreptitious rendezvous. Everything converged into a chilling revelation. She engaged the gear and drove off, her thoughts churning, a tempest gathering within. She didn't know the precise steps to take, but one certainty solidified. She would safeguard her kin, whatever the toll. And Earl had some serious explaining ahead. Hidden eyes. The hardware store hummed with artificial light, a coldness that bit at Darlene after the ranch's sun-baked embrace. Her grip tightened on the basket, nails pressing crescents into her palm. An hour she'd frittered away amongst drill bits and color swatches, battling the unease that gnawed at her. This subterfuge felt alien, a descent she'd never envisioned. Jolene's words, a venomous hum, replayed in her thoughts. Earl's betrayal, stark and undeniable. But Lily's safety eclipsed everything. Finally, the security system displays loomed. A clerk, barely out of adolescence, materialized with a polished smile. "Looking for something in particular, ma'am?" "Cameras," Darlene managed, the word a gritty pebble in her mouth. "Small, unobtrusive." The clerk's smile remained fixed. "We have several options. Wireless, motion-sensitive, some with infrared. What area are you hoping to secure?" Darlene paused. "Livestock," she blurted. "Predators getting too close to the new foals." He nodded sagely. "Happens all the time. Ranchers favor this one." He indicated a miniature camera disguised as a smoke detector. "Good range, reliable battery." Darlene turned it over in her palm. A cold, detached instrument of suspicion. She purchased 3. At the register, the clerk offered a perfunctory smile and a sack. Darlene barely acknowledged him. Back at the ranch, the sunset painted the fields in bruised purples and fiery oranges. Earl was out, ostensibly mending fences on the north side. The timing, she reasoned, was impeccable. A tremor ran through her as she unpacked the cameras. The instruction pamphlet was deceptively simple, the accessible technology almost mocking her inner turmoil. The barn was first, a sanctuary Lily adored, redolent with the comforting sense of hay and equine musk. One camera she affixed to a high beam, its lens surveying the central aisle where Lily honed her barrel racing skills. Another found its place in the tack room, nestled among saddles and bridles, trained on the entrance. The third, that one choked her. It was for Lily's room. Darlene stood in the threshold, the device weighing heavy in her hand, her pulse a frantic drum. This felt like a profound intrusion, a violation of the implicit trust between them. But the vision of Lily's guileless face, her radiant eyes, propelled her forward. A bookshelf became the hiding place, the camera tucked between a row of dog-eared horse stories and a collection of painted stones meticulously arranged by Lily. Nearly invisible, a silent sentry in her daughter's private world. As she retreated, a wave of sickness washed over her. She had become a spy in her own home. Later, the laptop screen cast an eerie glow on Darlene's face. Software installed, the cameras humming online. 3 grainy vignettes filled the display. The barn aisle, deserted and still. The tack room, shadows stretching and receding in the gloom. And Lily's room, adorned with images of equine champions and a plush unicorn enthroned on the bed. Lily was absent. Darlene glued her gaze to the screen, a cold fist squeezing her insides. She felt like a prowler, an unwelcome guest within her own walls. The silence of the house throbbed around her, magnifying the guilt clawing at her. She should be reading to Lily, smoothing her hair. Instead, she was surveilling an empty room, awaiting some unknown threat. She snapped the laptop shut, the screen fading into blackness with a soft sigh. The image of Lily's room burned behind her eyelids, a stark emblem of the rift that had cleaved her life in two. Earl's infidelity had transmuted her into someone unrecognizable, a woman consumed by suspicion and dread. She yearned for an era of effortless trust, when her home offered solace, not a battleground. Sleep remained elusive, a phantom just beyond her grasp. She thrashed, images of Lily and Earl intermingling and blurring. Each time she succumbed to closing her eyes, she saw the cameras, their relentless lenses watching, recording, poised to expose the truth. What if she misjudged him? What if Earl was blameless? The notion whispered through the den of her fear, a tiny seed of doubt planted in the rich soil of her lingering affection. As dawn tentatively colored the sky, she abandoned the bed. She needed Lily to embrace her, to reassure herself of her safety. She discovered her daughter asleep, cocooned beneath a jumble of blankets, her breath a gentle cadence. Darlene knelt, stroking Lily's hair, her heart aching with a love so profound it bordered on pain. Lily stirred, her eyelids fluttering. "Mama!" "Hush, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." Lily nestled closer, her small hand reaching out to clasp Darlene's. "Love you, Mama." Darlene's throat constricted. "I love you too, Lilybug. More than anything in the world." She remained there, watching her daughter, the burden of her choices pressing down on her. She would safeguard Lily, regardless of the cost to her happiness, to her very sense of self. The cameras were her secreted eyes, her silent protectors. A grievous necessity, a desperate gamble in a world suddenly, terrifyingly, unpredictable. The unthinkable revealed. The monitor's luminescence painted Darlene's face in shades of anxiety. Hours she'd spent shuttling back and forth through the digital stream, fatigue stinging her eyes, a creeping horror tightening her chest. The other camera feeds offered only mundanity. Earl's strained joviality as he worked the cattle, Jolene's tuneless humming during dinner prep, the ranch's predictable cadence. But Lily's room, that was the vortex holding her captive. She dismissed it as maternal hypervigilance, magnified by Jolene's insidious insinuations. She'd reasoned she was violating Lily's sanctuary for nothing. Yet now, with the clock's slow march toward 3, Earl materialized on the screen, entering Lily's room. Her breath snagged. The image, a canvas of shadows broken only by the camera's crimson sentinel, showed Earl moving with a hushed stealth, the door closing with barely a whisper. Darlene's grip on the desk tightened, her knuckles bone white. She fought the urge to avert her gaze, to erase the file, to deny what she was witnessing. But Lily, her child, on screen, Earl settled on the edge of Lily's bed. Asleep, her small form was cocooned beneath a quilt, a legacy from Darlene's grandmother. He extended a hand, hovering, trembling, above Lily's hair. A wave of nausea crested in Darlene's gut. He stroked her hair, the gesture initially gentle, morphing into a possessiveness that prickled Darlene's skin. "No," she breathed, the sound swallowed by the oppressive quiet. "No, Earl, don't." He leaned in, his features veiled by the gloom. Darlene zoomed, her fingers vibrating. Now she saw it, his lips moving, murmuring secrets into Lily's ear. The recording offered no sound, but the words resonated in her soul. She knew. He shifted closer, his form pressing against Lily's slight frame. Lily stirred, a muffled sound escaping her lips. Earl stilled, then slowly, deliberately, lowered the quilt, revealing Lily's thin cotton nightgown. Darlene watched, frozen, as his hand moved again, tracing the delicate curve of Lily's body beneath the fabric. A sob burst from her, a primal sound that clawed at the silence of the house. She recoiled from the desk, sending a cascade of files to the floor, their scattered disarray mirroring the turmoil within her. She stumbled towards the sanctuary of the bathroom, her legs shaky and unreliable. She reached the porcelain throne just in time, the violent expulsion racking her body, the acrid taste a physical manifestation of betrayal, of a reality fractured beyond repair. She rinsed her mouth, her hands quaking so fiercely she could scarcely hold the cup. The mirror reflected a stranger, her face ashen, her eyes wide with unspeakable horror. This couldn't be real. A nightmare of epic proportions. But the images, stark and undeniable, played on repeat in her mind. Earl, her husband, the anchor of her life, had defiled their daughter. She slumped to the tiled floor, the cold seeping into her bones. The room swayed, the walls threatening to collapse. Air struggled to fill her lungs. Thought eluded her. Only the image of Lily's trusting face and Earl's violating hand occupied her consciousness. Then, a molten rage began to coalesce, a slow burn threatening to ignite. It intertwined with the crushing despair, the unbearable agony of betrayal. She had failed Lily, allowed this to happen under her roof. An eternity passed on the cold tile, a broken figure amidst the shards of her former life. The dawn painted the room with tentative strokes of light, each ray a melancholic reminder of the day ahead. As the sun climbed higher, a new resolve began to solidify. The pain remained a raw and open wound, but beneath it, a core of steel hardened. She would shield Lily. She would exact justice on Earl. She refused to let him obliterate their family. She rose, her legs still protesting, but her gaze unwavering. Back to the computer she went, her movements purposeful, her determination absolute. The damning footage looped, each frame etching itself into her memory. Then, she reached for the phone, severing the silence. It was time to call the sheriff. It was time to reclaim herself. Confrontation and denial. A bitter taste, sharp as battery acid, stung Darlene's tongue as she gripped the memory card. It felt monumental, a digital Pandora's box brimming with a truth poised to shatter her world. She waited in the living room, the silence a suffocating blanket woven with the weight of revelation. The waning sun painted elongated silhouettes across the faded rug, each dust mote illuminated in stark clarity, a mocking display of peace against the tempest raging within. When Earl sauntered in, butchering a familiar tune, a glacial fury solidified within Darlene. Exhaustion etched deeper lines around his eyes, yet his swagger reeked of a sickening self-satisfaction. It sent bile churning through her. "Hey, Dar," he greeted, tossing his keys onto the side table. "Rough day. What's cooking?" Darlene offered no greeting. Instead, she extended the memory card, her hand betraying a slight tremor. "Does this look familiar?" He scowled, squinting at the minuscule object. "What is it? Some kind of SD card?" He reached, but she snatched it back. "This," she said, her voice a low rasp, holds incontrovertible evidence of what you've been doing to Lily. The blood fled from Earl's complexion, leaving him ashen. His gaze darted frantically around the room, a cornered animal seeking a phantom exit. What were you talking about? What are you implying? His voice trembled, a pathetic facade of innocence. Darlene's laugh cracked, devoid of mirth. Don't insult my intelligence, Earl. I've watched the recordings. Every single vile detail. She spat the words, each syllable infused with venom. He lurched backward, colliding with a side table. A ceramic lamp teetered, threatening to spill its light. Recordings? What recordings? You're delusional, Dar. You're losing your mind. Oh, I'm delusional. Darlene advanced, her eyes blazing infernos. Delusional for believing in you all these years. For entrusting you with my daughter's safety? For the travesty of loving you. He shook his head with violent fervor. This is a misunderstanding. Lily, she's a child. Children exaggerate. They misinterpret. His voice spiraled upward, nearing a hysterical shriek. She's not mistaken, Earl. She's a victim of your depravity. Darlene bellowed, the sound reverberating. Tears flowed, an acrid blend of fury and desolation. No, it's not true. Lily is mistaken. She's retaliating for something. Perhaps I disciplined her or restricted her phone. Kids manufacture stories. They prevaricate. Sweat beaded on his brow, painting his face crimson. His eyes bulged with raw panic. Darlene stalked him, pressing him against the wall. Don't you dare deflect the blame onto her, you monster. I witnessed it firsthand. I saw your hands on her. I saw the lust in your eyes. You're misinterpreting. You're consumed with jealousy. You've always resented Lily. She's vibrant and youthful, and you're aging. The words landed like blows, yet Darlene barely registered them. All that consumed her was the image of Earl's violation of her daughter. Jealous? She echoed, her voice trembling with a newly ignited rage. I'm sickened, Earl. Repulsed. I can't stomach being in the same room as you. Consider your actions, Dar. Think of our family. We've cultivated a life together. A beautiful life. He begged, his voice fracturing. Don't dismantle it based on some childish fabrication. Darlene seized a shirt, her knuckles white as she twisted the fabric. You severed our family ties the instant you defiled my daughter. You forfeited any claim to this existence, to this sanctuary, to me. What will you do, Dar? Alert the authorities? Destroy me? Consider Lily. Consider the repercussions on her fragile mind. He was bartering now, clinging desperately to dwindling threads of hope. I am considering Lily, Darlene retorted, her voice a frigid blade. I'm considering her protection. I'm ensuring you never, under any circumstances, inflict harm upon her again. She released his shirt and receded, a chilling stillness enveloping her. Leave, Earl. Vacate my premises. Erase yourself from my existence. And never approach Lily again. If you do, she paused, her eyes locking onto his, unwavering. If you do, you'll rue the day you entered this world. Earl scrutinized her, his face a grotesque tableau of terror and resentment. He recognized the sincerity in her words. He opened his mouth to speak, yet his vocal cords were paralyzed. Wordlessly, he pivoted and shuffled toward the door, leaving Darlene isolated amidst the wreckage of her former life. The ceramic lamp, still oscillating, plunged to the floor, shattering into fragments, a fitting requiem for a marriage destroyed. Justice served. Darlene's blood surged, a frantic drumbeat eclipsing the night's serenade of crickets and distant cattle calls. Calling the authorities felt impossible. Not yet. The horrific images seared her memory, Lily's face contorted in, a sob caught in Darlene's throat. The law's pace would be glacial, its understanding of her incandescent fury inadequate. A drawn-out dance of inquiries, legal wrangling, and a possible conviction, while Earl remained free, contaminating the very air Lily breathed. Unacceptable. She strode towards the back, the porch boards groaning underfoot like aged joints. The humid air, thick with honeysuckle and the promise of rain, clung to her skin. In the cluttered mudroom, amidst Earl's discarded boots and Lily's neglected jump rope, they waited, gardening shears, their tempered steel glinting in the gloom. They felt like a frigid anchor in her grasp, a grim solace in their firm weight. No lights disturbed her progress across the yard. The moon, a slender crescent in the obsidian sky, stretched grotesque shadows ahead. The barn, a looming monolith, awaited. He would be there, scuttling, cowering, likely stuffing a pathetic bag, delusional enough to believe he could simply vanish. The barn door rasped open, the sound amplified across the tranquil landscape. Inside, a reek of hay, dust, and something sharper, the tang of terror. Earl, her voice, a hushed menace, barely registered above the night sounds. He was there, slumped against stacked hay bales, a duffel half-packed at his feet. His eyes, bloodshot and wide, darted upwards. Dar? Shut it, she breathed, raising a silencing hand. The shears caught the slivers of moonlight piercing through the barn's weathered planks. Don't utter a single word. He gulped, his Adam's apple a frantic pulse. Dar, you don't get it. Oh, I understand everything, she replied, her voice barren of inflection. I understand you're a blight on this earth. He lurched to his feet, desperation contorting his features. I wouldn't. Dar, please. I'm your wife's protector. Wife. The word tasted like ash on her tongue. You surrendered that privilege a lifetime ago. She advanced, the shears hanging loosely. You forfeited your right to fatherhood. You relinquished your right to exist. He charged, propelled by the reflection of her eyes, some base primal rage that clearly terrified him. His hands groped towards her, clumsy and frantic. She evaded him with ease, the muscle memory of years spent navigating rough-and-tumble encounters taking over. The shears danced in the limited light. He bellowed, a raw, bestial sound of agony and outrage. He stumbled back, cradling his arm, a crimson bloom spreading across his worn denim. The shears had drawn first blood, but not the ultimate verdict. Not yet. Think you can escape this? She spat, closing the distance. Think you can just walk away scot-free? He retreated towards the open doorway. Dar, im sorry. I'll get you anything. I'll disappear. Just spare me. Disappear? She echoed, her voice dripping with contempt. That consideration should have crossed your mind earlier. He bolted, but she was quicker. She tackled him, a whirlwind of limbs and straw engulfing them both. He clawed at her, nails scraping her scalp. She delivered a knee to his groin, a visceral, reflexive strike that brought him to his knees. As he writhed, she straddled him, her knees pinning his flailing arms. The shears, slick with his lifeblood, remained in her grip. His eyes pleaded with her. This, she uttered, her voice trembling with a volatile mix of fury and despair, is for Lily. Silence descended upon the barn. Only her ragged respirations pierced the quiet. When she finally stood, hours later, the moon's glow had begun to ebb. She abandoned him there, a broken, whimpering figure amidst the hay. The shears rested beside him, stained a deep, damning shade. She returned to the farmhouse, her boots caked with mud and something else. A darker, more insidious residue she couldn't name. The house was enveloped in stillness, Lily slumbering peacefully. Darlene lingered in the doorway of her daughter's room, tracing the gentle rise and fall of her chest. She had shielded her. She had done what was necessary. But as she turned, she understood nothing would ever be the same. The Rubicon had been crossed. The equilibrium she had so assiduously maintained lay in fragments, and a shadow loomed, poised to devour her entirely. The price of vengeance. Crimson smeared the discarded shears amidst the hay. Darlene's gaze locked on Earl, a crumpled figure against the barn wall, his breathing shallow, anguish etched onto his features. This wasn't the plan, not precisely. Yet that buried inferno had awakened, engulfing everything. Lily. The name offered a fleeting coolness to her scalded conscience. Heart pounding a frantic rhythm, She lurched towards the house. She had to reach Lily, ensure her safety. But Lily's room lay empty, the bedclothes a tangled mess. Darlene's breath caught in her throat. Where could she be? A faint whimper drifted from the back porch. Darlene moved as if through molasses, each footfall heavy with foreboding. There, on the swing, Lily was a tight knot of misery, face hidden in her knees, her small frame trembling violently. "Lily Bug," Darlene rasped, sinking to her knees beside her. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Tell Mama." Lily remained unresponsive, lost in her tremors. Darlene's hand hovered, hesitant to intrude, terrified of what she might discover. At last, she brushed a strand of hair from Lily's face. "It's all right, baby. Mama's right here. You're safe." The words tasted like ash in her mouth, a monstrous falsehood. Safe? Not after what she had just committed. Not after what Lily might have witnessed. Finally, Lily lifted her gaze, her eyes mirroring a bottomless terror. "Mama, Daddy," she stammered, the words unfinished. Darlene understood. She knew what Lily had seen, or at least perceive enough of it to leave indelible marks. Enough to shatter that innocent world. I had to, precious girl," Darlene choked out, her voice fracturing. "He was hurting you, hurting both of us. I couldn't let it continue." Lily's confusion was palpable, an innocence too young to grasp Earl's long duplicity, the insidious lies, the simmering resentment that had finally reached its boiling point. Darlene enfolded Lily in a tight embrace, holding her close. "It's over now, Lily Bug. He can't ever hurt you again. I promise." She needed to report it. Urgently. Every fiber screamed at her to safeguard Lily, to flee, to vanish. But she was the sheriff, sworn to uphold the law, and she had just shattered it into a million pieces. Guiding Lily inside, she settled her at the kitchen table, placing a glass of water before her. "Stay here, honey. Don't move. Mama needs to use the phone." Lily simply nodded, eyes glued to the water, her gaze unfocused. Darlene reached the landline, her fingers fumbling as she dialed. Deputy Johnson answered on the second ring. "Johnson, it's Dar." Her voice, stripped of all inflection, sounded alien. "Sheriff? Is everything okay?" "No, Johnson. Far from it." She inhaled deeply. "I need you to come to my place. And bring backup." Silence hung in the air. "What's going on, Sheriff?" "Just come, Johnson. And an ambulance, too." Another breath, deeper this time. I injured Earl. Severely. He's in the barn. I'll explain when you arrive." The line remained muted for a heartbeat. "Sheriff, are you saying?" "Yes, Johnson. Exactly that. I'm reporting a crime. I perpetrated it." She severed the connection, the vacant, buzz-a-piercing scream in the sudden quiet. Her gaze drifted to Lily, still seated at the table, absorbed in her private trauma. Darlene approached, kneeling beside her once more, clasping her small hand. "Everything will be all right, Lily Bug. I promise. Mama will always protect you." Minutes later, the sirens began their mournful cry, the sound echoing across Harmony Creek. The news, once whispered, quickly became a roar. Sheriff Whitlock assaulted her husband in the barn. Rumors spiraled, each telling adding its own embellishments. Some spoke of a long-standing enmity, others of a rage fueled by jealousy. The unvarnished truth remained hidden, for now. But it would surface. Johnson was the first to arrive, his face a tableau of disbelief and apprehension. He moved towards Darlene gingerly, his hand instinctively near his sidearm. "Sheriff, what happened here?" Darlene straightened, her shoulders squared against an invisible weight. "I told you, Johnson. I'll explain everything. First, you need to care for Lily." As Johnson led Lily toward his patrol car, swaddling her in a blanket from the trunk, Darlene turned and strode towards the barn, the whirling lights of the emergency vehicle casting harsh, macabre shadows. The price of retribution, she understood, was about to be extracted in full, a debt that would haunt her and Harmony Creek far into the future. Redemption and healing. The courtroom pulsed with a stifling blend of dread and expectancy. Darlene, spine rigid, fixed her attention on a distant point somewhere beyond the jurors. Hands that knew the feel of rough rope and a service pistol were now clenched tight, knuckles bone white. The strain of recent months had carved its mark into her features, deepening the furrows around her eyes and the set of her mouth. The low hum of legal proceedings barely registered. The lawyer's pronouncements, the rustling of documents, the furtive whispers tailing her presence. Only Lily mattered. When Lily's name echoed through the chamber, a held breath rippled through the onlookers. Darlene's pulse hammered, a frantic rhythm against the silence. Lily moved with measured steps, her slight physique appearing even more vulnerable under the harsh fluorescent lights. Her eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, were now shadowed with a pain far beyond her years. The prosecutor, her face etched with empathy, approached Lily with careful tread. "Lily, sweetheart, can you tell the court what you remember about your father?" Lily faltered, her gaze flitting to Darlene, a silent request for courage. A barely perceptible nod was Darlene's response, a silent assurance of support. Lily swallowed hard, and her voice emerged as a mere thread of sound. "He wasn't always kind," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "He'd shout, and he touched me where he shouldn't." A wave of shock reverberated through the room. Darlene felt a searing agony rip through her, a physical manifestation of Lily's suffering. She fought to remain composed, a bulwark of strength for her daughter. Lily pressed on, her voice gaining strength with each revelation, as if the act of voicing her secrets was liberating her. She described Earl's abuse in stark, childlike terms, each word cutting through the silence like shards of glass. She spoke of the fear, the confusion, the violation he had inflicted. Only Lily's voice punctuated the stillness, punctuated by the occasional muffled sob. As Lily concluded, a palpable wave of emotion surged through the courtroom. Jurors, their faces reflecting the weight of the testimony, averted their eyes from Darlene. The prosecutor dabbed at her dampened eyes. A solitary tear slid down Darlene's cheek, a testament to the fierce pride swelling within her at Lily's bravery. The trial lumbered onward, but Lily's testimony had fundamentally altered the course. The prosecution, while not excusing Darlene's actions, portrayed a mother pushed beyond endurance, driven to extremes to shield her child. The defense countered with arguments of self-defense and diminished capacity, emphasizing the years of emotional and psychological torment Darlene endured at Earl's hand. The jury's deliberations stretched into an agonizing eternity. When they finally returned, the silence was absolute. The foreman, a weary-eyed man, read the verdict, guilty of aggravated assault, but with extenuating circumstances. Darlene's eyes shut briefly as a tidal wave of relief washed over her. It wasn't outright absolution, but it was worlds away from the life sentence she had dreaded. The sentencing hearing was concise. The judge, a woman of stern countenance, yet fair judgment, acknowledged the gravity of Darlene's crime, yet also recognized the exceptional circumstances that spawned it. She handed down a sentence of 5 years, with eligibility for parole after 2 years, a seeming eternity. But Darlene knew she possessed the grit to weather it. She would use the time for introspection, for healing, to prepare for the day she would embrace Lily again. Prison was a brutal, unyielding realm, but Darlene found comfort in the structured routine and the camaraderie of other women who shared similar burdens. She pursued education, earning her GED, and confronted the buried trauma that had haunted her for years. She also cherished regular visits from Lily and her Aunt Marlene, visits that served as beacons during her darkest hours. Her release arrived in what felt like a heartbeat and a geological age at once. Lily, now a vibrant 10-year-old, waited at the prison gates, her eyes sparkling with joy. As they embraced, the pain and hardship of the preceding years seemed to simply vanish. Life beyond prison presented tough obstacles. Darlene grappled to secure work, shadowed by her record and the burden of her conviction. Yet, She was resolute in her efforts to rebuild her life, to forge a secure and stable future for Lily. While volunteering at a local haven for women, Darlene realized her calling. She found a powerful connection to aiding victims of abuse, sharing her story to spark hope within those who felt lost and broken. She went back to school, earning a degree in social work and eventually becoming a certified counselor. Darlene channeled her life into advocacy, leveraging her experience to connect deeply with others and empower them to break free from their abusers. She spoke at workshops, facilitated support groups, and worked tirelessly to bring attention to the topic of domestic violence. Years flew by. Lily developed into a confident, self-reliant young woman, a testament to Darlene's unwavering affection and devotion. Darlene, meanwhile, discovered her own redemption in service, assisting others in healing from the wounds she herself bore. The scars of the past remained, yet they served as a reminder of the inner fortitude she had discovered, the strength to surmount difficulty and craft a life brimming with purpose and significance. She transformed into a symbol of hope, a living illustration of the power of resilience, demonstrating that even following the darkest nights, a new day could always dawn.